in terms of that transition, or like transitioning my music to another level and a mentor, I think because the way that my career started was so collaboration based, as in I was 15, 16, going into studios and watching people record verses. And a lot of the time I didn't know who they were, because like they were cemented in UK hip hop or something, and they were significantly older, but I was going in as my friend's friend that can sing and like just give her a chance sort of thing. But then I did end up, so around 16, 17, I joined a collective called People's Army, which in the UK, it was like made up of, I can't say how many people, maybe like 100 different artists. It was less of like a group and more just like a community. If you're an artist that has a positive message, you're part of this thing. And that meant that I ended up going and seeing people doing cyphers. I was in the background of music videos. Some of the people involved were quite big in terms of like how big you can be underground and stuff like that. So yeah, People's Army, I mean, the people that, namely the ones that come to mind straight away that are like kind of cemented in UK hip hop history who I watched. I don't know how much I took from them in terms of lyricism, but I definitely was inspired by like how much attention they could garner. There's a rapper called English Frank who was in it, Mike Righteous, Logic, Big Cakes, and these are like all UK, like they're in UK history, but real underground stuff, as in they didn't really like do the mainstream thing, but they're known. Like you go around, you can ask someone who's 30 or 40 years old and they know who those people are. And it was actually my friend Azita, who was like one of my best friends at the time, who decided to manage me. She brought me into that world. And her husband now is UK hip hop legend Rodney P. So I don't know if you've heard of Rodney P, but he's the first person in the UK to rap. Yeah, exactly. You know, so GQ knows. Rodney P was the first UK rapper to rap with a British accent. Before that, every rapper was rapping with an American accent. So then they call him the UK hip hop pioneer, because that changed the game completely. And his wife just happens to be my best friend, who managed me when I was 16. And that's how I ended up just getting this introduction to absolutely everyone, especially in UK hip hop, but as a kid. So it's just like, but what I loved about it and what the culture was with People's Army is that it's such good vibes. If you have a talent and they recognize it, they just push you and they believe in you, and like everyone gives you a chance. I remember I'd do barbecues at my house, and maybe at this time I was like 18 or 19, and People's Army would come, which mean like 50 people would turn up at my house with like big dogs, stuff like that. I remember dogs being at my house, being kind of scared, but I'm just like, well, these people are quite like, they're quite famous to some degree. So come through, like you recognize that I'm part of People's Army, which means you roll up to my barbecues and stuff like that. I remember my friends being like, these other 16, 17, 18-year-old girls like, okay, why are these rappers here? After that point, then yeah, it kind of got a lot more digital, because then MySpace was really bubbling. And I was getting some traction on MySpace, and then things moved to SoundCloud. And once the SoundCloud like revolution happened, it was kind of like, because there was a real repost culture. And I remember that Selection was one of the first labels to share, because Joe K played a song from my second EP, but it was like completely independently recorded, mixed and mastered by me. He played like a couple of the songs from that EP on the Selection show. And at that time, there was a real cult following around that. So whatever he played, it just blew up. The song blew up. I don't even think I could even catch up with like how quickly that happened. But then because there was that real culture of someone quite popular online sharing your music, and then you have to catch up with it. Yeah, I did that thing of like connecting with people online really quickly. And then I met people like I Am Nobody. Again, we worked together probably for a few years before we actually met in real life. And like listening to his production and just being a vocalist in that collaboration, I grew so much just from the beats he was sending me, because I'm just like, my beats need to sound like this. I can't send him something because it's going to be so whack compared to that. But like, I got the opportunity to like see how it sounded when he sent me the first demo to how it sounded when he sent me the final bounce, the final mix or something like that. Again, with like people like Romderful, where it was all online. He lives in Birmingham, which is like maybe it's a the fast train 3-hour train ride or something away, but we worked. I'm sure we worked before we actually met in real life. And like, I had that with so many people where I was working with producers remotely so much, but it meant that I had like gold on my computer, on my hard drive. I had everyone's unreleased music. I had so many beats. And when I say I have thousands, it's not even in the hundreds anymore. I've got thousands of unreleased songs, beats, ideas that people had, loops, people just sending me like piano and guitar recordings and stuff, just asking me to write to it, which all gave me this arsenal of things to learn from. Because like I could sit there and listen to these things on loop and figure out how it was done to a good degree, and then also just ask. I'd just be like, how did you get your drums to smack so hard? And they'd be like, yeah, just parallel compression. I'm like, what the hell is parallel compression? Then they tell me what it is, and it was just like that, but like 1,000 times over from so many different artists, producers, and like musicians that I kind of just learned from collaborating in that kind of way. With Ty, People's Army, he was like a part of People's Army as well. They were all like, this is what I'm saying about the UK and it being a real like close culture, and everyone that was on positive vibes, especially someone like Ty, he was Brixton through and through. So Brixton is an area of South London, and people call him the Brixton baby, the Brixton king, because like there's no event, there's no shop, there's no record store, there's no restaurant that like if you go into Brixton, you're going to see Ty there. Like if you go to a show, any fundraisers, any sort of charity events, anything that's to do with supporting the youth, music, especially the arts, anything to do with just pushing the culture forward, Ty was there. And like the thing about him, every time that I ever met him, it's like I never expected him to remember who I was, because I was always just this kid that was following an older kid around that was following someone who was actually supposed to be there. So like every single time that I'd meet him, I'd always think he's not going to remember me, and he met me with the same energy every single time. I don't know if he ever really we connected on social medias, so he would have been seeing like what I was up to. But every time he met me, he always had like such encouraging words, and he was always like so proud. And I was always a bit in disbelief, like, is it me that you're thinking of when you're congratulating me on these things? And like he'd always be giving me so much advice, and like he'd always have something good to say about, I don't know, how you're walking on this earth, especially as a musician, especially in terms of the community and stuff like that. Any sort of projects that would happen. There was a time that like Azita and Rodney P were making a documentary called, why does it escape my mind right this minute? Documentary name escapes my mind, but they were doing a UK hip hop documentary hosted by Rodney P, because obviously he's the UK pioneer, and they interviewed Ty for it. So there was like, and I was working as the like artist liaison, because again I was just a kid that was like following them around and stuff like that. So like I remember going down and getting Ty and telling him, you have to get this and this ready for the interviews and stuff like that. And like him just being, I don't know, watching him in an interview, he was just a ray of light. And then also you just recognize how connected he was to everything. Like he was there. Anything in music, in UK music history, especially UK hip hop history, he doesn't speak of it as like he doesn't speak about it as an onlooker or like someone who was just like, who had a gaze on these things. He was there. Like he was part of the reason that so many things happened for so many different artists. He was in the studio sessions and at radio as well. He supported everyone. He always had like such a good thing to say. So like his loss is, even though like you couldn't categorize him as a national treasure in this country, so it wouldn't be a thing like the whole of the UK recognizes, everyone that like is involved in underground UK music, not necessarily just only hip hop, but like anything that was underground, anything that was really London central as well. Like this is a loss for all of us, because we've lost someone who like was at the forefront of so many initiatives and supported wholeheartedly, and like was always genuine and reminded people to be genuine as well. And then he spoke to everyone on every single level, like we were all here, and he was always really encouraging. So like I remember on the day that he passed, the all of the memorials, all of the messages that were going out, they all said the same thing. Every single person has a good memory of Ty. Like, specifically, I remember being in Brixton, and I can't even remember who I went to meet. I had a meeting or something, and seeing him through the window and like thinking, oh, I know that face, that's Ty. And like when we caught eyes, he said hi to me, and I was just like, what? This guy just has that way. And again, I was just like, does he really remember me, or is he just so nice that when he sees someone and he locks eyes with them, he just says hi? So I remember coming out and being like, hey Ty, and then having a conversation with him there, and then him just talking about like, it's so good to see what you're doing in music, and still me just being in disbelief that like he can remember and retain that kind of information, knowing that this is the guy that is like an angel in everybody's life. So like, yeah, that's just the person that he is. And it's just a shame that like this wasn't his time. Coronavirus it doesn't discriminate, unfortunately, and it's like that's why it's very real, because he wasn't supposed to go anywhere anytime soon, and this virus is unrelenting, and unfortunately he's just a victim of it.